Tetsuya Nomura recently attended and spoke at the Monaco Anime Gaming International Conference 2017, something which was actually announced last October. At the end of his talk, he actually caught everyone by surprise by showing off some new screenshots for the Final Fantasy VII Remake. This was of course some major news, but the rest of his talk was actually very interesting in itself, at least if you're interested in the creation process of some of Final Fantasy's most recognisable protagonists. I think everyone appreciates that Nomura has been a prominent figure within Square Enix for some time now. He has served as a main character designer for the core franchise since Final Fantasy VII, has created his own successful spin-off franchise, and has also transitioned into the role of creative producer, overseeing projects such as Dissidia, Final Fantasy Type 0, Theatrhythm, and of course World of Final Fantasy. Everyone has to start somewhere though, and as Nomura spoke about in his talk, for him, that was as a debugger on Final Fantasy IV. He noted at the time that the development team were all hands on deck, and despite having absolutely no experience with debugging whatsoever, that was the role that he ended up being assigned. The rest of his talk was focused around the creation of his most famous characters, Cloud Strife, Squall Leonhart, Tidus, Sora and Lightning. So that's how we're going to structure this video too. So let's kick things off with Cloud Strife. The version of Cloud Strife that we all know and love, this guy, was actually the 5th version of the character that Nomura had created. He'd even created a 6th version, but it was never shown publicly as they went forward with version 5 instead. Nomura also went on to say that when they announced Final Fantasy VII, Cloud didn't even have a name yet. And the story changed quite a lot from the announcement through to release. When development of the game began, they had only small bits of story for the individual characters they created, but the global story wasn't finished, and Nomura pointed out that that's not the way they try to work anymore. With Squall, Nomura noted that although he did numerous drafts, the character stayed quite consistent throughout. He actually worked on the concept for Squall while he was also working on Parasite Eve, while on location in the US. During this time he worked closely with Najima, who is of course doing the screenplay for Final Fantasy VIII. Nomura also stated that he was actually the one who ended up naming all of the main characters in Final Fantasy VIII. Nomura's work on Final Fantasy X took place while he was also working on Kingdom Hearts, so it was a rather busy time for him personally. He noted that while they were in the middle of the game's development, they actually completely changed the entire scenario, and that left them wondering what the hell they were going to do with all the characters they created. In the end, they decided that only Tidus and Yuna would be retained for the final product. It means that characters like Wakka, Auron and Riku were only created following the complete restructure of the entire story. With Yuna, Nomura also noted that it was the first time in the history of the series where they had actively attempted to create a character who looked a little Japanese. When he was initially concepted, Sora was half man, half animal, but this ended up being changed due to work that was being done elsewhere on Final Fantasy IX. After learning that Sedan Tribal would actually have a tail, Nomura decided to change Sora's design to make him more human, as he didn't want the two characters to resemble each other. He then had a meeting with Disney to talk about the change that lasted until dawn. During this meeting they also discussed art styles. Nomura spoke about his preference for fairly straight strokes, but Disney preferred somewhat more rounded strokes, so that's what they ended up actually going with. For Final Fantasy XIII, Nomura was actually called in to work on the main protagonist design after development of the game had already started. Motomo Toriyama told Nomura that he wanted the main protagonist to be a woman, but he was afraid of what would happen if it didn't end up being a good character. They saw this as a big challenge, as apart from Terra in Final Fantasy VI and Aya in Parasite Eve, they didn't feel as though there were many strong women in the series. And after Toriyama went through Lightning's story with Nomura, he really didn't know what to do. To solve this, he ended up going to lots of fashion shows, and at one show, he saw a model with pink blonde hair. He felt this would be a great place to start, and thus, Lightning was born. I don't know about you guys, but after learning about these tiny little morsels of information from Nomura, it's actually really interesting, especially for the older games. These days, we're so much more aware of everything that's happening with the game's development, and this can easily be highlighted with Final Fantasy XV. But when you look back and note that they changed the entire storyline of Final Fantasy X halfway through the game's development, it's actually rather crazy. I think the most interesting part about this relates to Sora though. I feel it's easy to forget there were so many projects going on at the same time. They have to work hard to try and not replicate what other internal teams are doing. The fact that they ended up changing Sora's design due to how Zidane was progressing is pretty surreal. Imagine if it had happened the other way around. We could have ended up with Lion Sora and a human Zidane. Do you guys feel the same way? Do you think these insights are pretty cool? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe. If you'd like to support the channel, please head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/FFunion. These awesome folks have already done so why not join them? Alright guys, this is Daryl signing out. Thanks for watching everyone, I'll see you next time.